Who are some of the names that Arizona football could be relying on the defensive side to maybe make the unit okay? There's a couple names that might be flying under the radar a little bit.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. This show today is brought to you by FanDuel. You can put down $5, and if that bet hits, you get $150 in free plays. That simple, that easy. Check it out, FanDuel. All right, now, we talked a lot yesterday about Arizona football and just kind of where everything stands with this squad and, what you're really kind of looking for them. Listen. At the end of the day, I think that this offense is going to have to carry the team. We talked about the skill position players and about how they're pretty good at those skill spots, but there's definitely a lot to be there's a lot to be desired at some other spots, mainly the offensive line. But if Arizona is going to have a decent season, it's going to be because the offensive line was okay, and Seth Doege really kind of made a difference in all that. I think that's kind of where we're at. Now, the defense is going to be fascinating as well. Now, there were games last year where the defense – how do I put this? The defense probably played well enough to win, but the offense would be really bad. And then it was kind of vice versa. They basically took turns, deciding who was going to have a bigger struggle actually going forth and, putting forth a winning product on the field. The first one, though, is getting Danny Gonzales in there. I like Danny Gonzales. Listen. I don't really think that the defense was necessarily to blame last year because when you look at it, I don't think anybody thought the defense was going to be that good. I think that they just thought that they just needed to be passable. They weren't really passable. There were some games where you're like, okay, cool. But there were also some games too, where it's like, all right, you have lost the edge basically the entire game. Why does this keep happening? I keep thinking of the Kansas State game, for example. So Danny Gonzales is in. Now, I like Duane Akina a lot. Duane Akina hadn't called plays in a long time. And, some people are saying maybe that showed a little bit. But as far as a position coach, Duane Akina is about as good as there's ever been in college football. I mean, he is that guy. He is that good. And his track record speaks for itself. So, with somebody like Duane Akina, he's moving on. He's at Texas, obviously, as the defensive backs coach. Wish him nothing but the best. Him and Johnny Nansen were both beasts while they were here. So Danny Gonzales is in, though. Danny Gonzales, obviously, is going to run a 3-3-5. And if you ask around, some ASU folks or just whoever where he's coached, they generally like him. They generally like, his play calling. Now, there were times, I guess, when he was at ASU when he would just get killed by slants, but that's also something that's going to be fairly prevalent in a 3-3-5. But the play calling that they generally, and Andy's a good guy as well. That makes it, and I think that makes something that Brent Brennan's comfortable with. One thing that Brent Brennan has definitely decided, though, is that if he's going to go down with this ship, he's going to go down with guys that he likes, with guys that he trusts. Danny Gonzales, one of those people. Obviously, Josh Oglesby, we talked about before, one of those guys as well. So I got to give him, credit. He's going to fall on his sword. He's going to fall on his sword with the people that he wants. So let's talk a little bit about who needs to be able to do what. And first is the defensive line. So there's going to be the two defensive tackles. I'm actually, like I said, I'm growing on a little bit. I don't know what to expect out of Deshawn McKnight. I know a lot of people like Deshawn McKnight. I don't know what really to expect out of him. We'll see. I also like Tia Savea. He's not BBN, certainly not Big Bill Norton, but I think he's a pretty good. Defensive tackle, a pretty good option. He's good. I like Tia Savea. Then there's also someone, too, that those two are going to have to stay healthy. We saw it last year where guys got hurt, and then there wasn't really anybody after that. So, be that as it may. On the edges, I like Trey Smith. He's solid. He's not great, but he's solid. And then that other one, is it going to be Dominic Lalesio? Are you going to see a little bit of Riley Wilson in there, who we're going to get to in a minute? But the D line, like I said, if the tackles can stay healthy. And I just need, again, that's another one. I just need that unit to be okay. If that unit's okay, then I think Arizona could be in some decent shape. Now, the linebacking unit, there's something interesting there. And again, it's I don't want to be, anybody to bash the player because he's awesome. And I expect him to be really good, but it was a little bit of a step back last year. And I think we need to talk. I think we need to talk a little bit about that. But first, Monarch Money, my friends. Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat, just like you have in your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And what they're going to do as well, and what makes it so great, is that you can go through and you're like, oh man, I didn't realize that I didn't have this, or I didn't have that, or I'm spending all this money on that. That's where Monarch Money says, come here, we will help you. Okay, so, and again, you can consolidate a whole bunch of stuff there with it. And, again, you'll find out some certain money that you that you were spending. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, LOCKEDONCollege for half off of your first year. Again, like I said, you'll go through and you'll figure out pretty quickly. You're probably spending some money on some stuff that you could be saving for a rainy day or a vacation or something like that. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the linebacking unit. The linebacking unit to me is interesting. A lot of people are talking about, Jacob Manu, where exactly, he lands in all of this because he left. Listen, I like Jacob Manu a lot. I think he's going to be great. He was bad last year, and I think a big part of it is that he came in out of shape. Everybody I think kind of noticed it. He did not look trim and svelte. And somebody like that relies a lot on quickness, being able to get to the right area, all of that stuff. That's something that, you can't really have happen. Now, again, he's moved on. He's at Washington right now, so we'll see how that plays out. But Tay Brown, love getting Tay Brown back. I like Tay Brown. I think Tay Brown's pretty good. He's at about 6'2", 225 pounds. He's a playmaker, though. And I expect him to probably be Arizona's tackling machine. And that would be the guy that I would expect. But then after that, it becomes kind of interesting. Riley Wilson, to me, is kind of the X factor on this entire defense. When I look at Riley Wilson, I just see a guy that he can do. Like I said, he can do a lot of different things, but I think the thing that they really need him to do is they really need him to get after the pass rusher, the quarterback. They really need to get him. Because they got to find somebody besides Trey Smith that can go ahead and can actually get a few, stops here or there. That's kind of where I'm thinking with that now. But that's who you need. You're going to need somebody like that to really emerge. And I don't think it's going to be Gotcher or anybody like that. I think it's just going to be somebody, like I said, I think it's got to be somebody like Riley Wilson. Riley Wilson has shown in the past that he is a pretty formidable guy. We'll see if he can take that one to the next level, because there's certainly a lot of possibilities there. But Arizona has got to get a pass rusher out of this. Maybe Chase Kennedy, like we talked about as well. I think Chase Kennedy's got a little bit of that oomph to him. The problem with Chase Kennedy, though, is he's also 205 pounds. So, can he withstand that? But you got some options. We'll see how, like I said, it's going to be interesting. But the defensive line, I think, and the linebackers, I'm just going to keep saying it. I just need them to be okay. I just need the defense to be okay. And if the offense can be pretty good, then I think Arizona's in pretty good shape. Now, the defensive backs, and this is the most talented. You could make the case this is the most talented unit on the team. And it's definitely got the best player on the defense in Genesis Smith. Genesis Smith's a monster. He's going to play in the NFL, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's a day 2 pick. He's big, he's explosive, he's fast, 6'3", 215 pounds. And unlike a guy like Tacario Davis, he's got a knack for the football. He can track the football, he can find the football. And that's an underrated aspect. You look at someone like Tacario, and he'd be in the NFL if he could catch the football, but he drops everything. Genesis Smith, even though he's a safety, pretty much gets everything, and he's going to be a little bit of a difference maker, I think, for the Wildcats. But there's some other guys as well that I think Arizona is going to see really stick out. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, Genesis Smith obviously is a monster. Now it's going to be interesting to see what happens then. You've got Traden Stukes back. He's going to be in the nickel. Dwayne Aquina said it many times that he believes that Traden Stukes was the best nickel back in the entire country before he got hurt. And I don't know that I disagree with him. He can play in the box. He can get in coverage. He can do a lot of stuff. And, like I said, if he were on an NFL roster, it wouldn't totally surprise me. Kid had a good year. Just really, really nice to have him back. He's a little bit like somebody else, like Dalton Johnson, who we're going to talk about here. Well, we'll talk about him right now. And that they're both kind of quarterbacks on the field. When they're on the field, you feel a little bit better about where everything is. You feel a little bit better that you've got somebody who, like I said, is going to be able to make a difference, and they're going to be able to get guys in the right spot. I think back to Jed when he finally put Dalton Johnson on the field, and the defense just kind of started to figure its way out. That was something that wasn't really the case, obviously, before he was out there, when you had guys like Christian Young who just really weren't good enough. Traden Stukes, though, and Dalton Johnson, guys that you got to feel pretty comfortable with back there. And then so those are your three, and then we'll get to the boundary corners. But like I said, when you look at the safeties in the corners, when you look at somebody like Stukes, when you look at somebody like, Dalton Johnson, when you look at somebody like a Genesis Smith, that's pretty good stuff right there. Now, the corner spots, MGK and Javion Cole. With MGK, he's got he played some good football last year. He's also got some real questions. He's also got some real things where you're like, interesting. The BYU game I keep coming back to. I have no clue what he was doing in that game. It was one of the oddest games I've seen from somebody who was pretty good. But I still like him. This is going to be a big year for him. Arizona got him back, and he's going to be probably one of those two starting corners. Then you obviously got Javion Cole. I'm going to keep saying it. I don't care if he didn't play at Texas. That doesn't matter to me. Texas recruits a different type of player. He is a different kind of guy entirely, but that doesn't mean that he can't come here a la Bill Norton, who came from Georgia, didn't play, and was a difference maker. Sometimes guys just need to be put in their right spot. But overall, like I said, if the defense can finish like 10th overall in the Big 12, I'll take it. And like I said, having Danny Gonzales in there, that's not a bad thing. Having Danny Gonzales in there as a coach that has been through the ringers. He's like I said, he's pretty well renowned as a play caller. The one thing about him is too that he's he gets it. He's there's going to be some criticism. There's going to be some some times where it's like, all right, well, whatever. But this defense, like I said, I don't expect it to be great by any means. I just can't have it suck. And if it sucks and it's like the 19th best if it's like the 16th best defense in the conference, then Arizona's probably in some trouble. I'm cautiously optimistic. We'll see. Like I said, the big thing for Arizona for me is getting to year 3 with Brent Brennan. If he's going to deserve a third year, you've got to at least get 5 wins. And I think you've got to show that you're in that, that you're ready to take that next step, that, in year 3, you could maybe you'll have a senior quarterback in Noah. You could possibly get to that 7 or 8 win bridge. And then I think you just kind of take it from there. But defense, like I said, you got some players. You probably only got one NFL player, so that's never ideal, but it's a team that does have a little bit of talent. We'll find out. I just, like I said, if it could just be mediocre, I think Arizona would be in really, really good shape. All right. Now, tomorrow, we're going to talk more, and we're going to talk about where we are at now with the with basketball recruiting. We're going to talk a little football recruiting because he's done a pretty good job, and, just kind of everything that goes into it as well. But like I said, Riley Wilson, that's the guy that I think you really need to see. If you're Arizona, you really want to hope that he makes that next step. If he makes that next step, then I think Arizona could be in some decent shape. But on that note, very much appreciate you all making the Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. Locked On, your team every day. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day.